If you love America, you're among friends here.
You're tuned in to Rebooting Liberty.
Have you ever wanted to have your own radio show? Rebooting Liberty Radio Network currently has openings for live programs. For a very small fee, we will create a show intro, bumper music, and provide technical production for your hour-long show. Email producer@rebootingliberty.com for details. You can find us at live.rebootingliberty.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM/FM 24/7, Leading Edge Radio Network, and RoarRadio.net, and thepunditpress.com. And joining me today as my co-host is the patriot from the Garden State, Anna Little. Anna, welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
So glad to be with you, Rick.
Great to have you with us, Anna. And boy, has the world changed since the last time you and I were together on the show.
My goodness, you are right. Who would have thought that in the heart of gay Paris, we would have a complete and utter war zone? I am serious about this. The bombings themselves were war zone-esque. But then there's the raid on the apartment, which I think there was more exchange in that one incident than there may be on the ground in Syria or in Afghanistan in average incidents because of the lack of engagement by U.S. forces. I mean, perhaps I'm exaggerating there, but it certainly was nothing like an urban SWAT team event. Certainly a military incident. And I have to commend the authorities in France for being prepared for that kind of exchange in civilized society. It's a rarity up until now.
Anna, I heard a report that over 5,000 rounds of ammunition were shot during that raid into that apartment. It is lucky, I believe it's lucky that people around that apartment, innocent bystanders, other than there was one innocent passerby that was killed. But I'm surprised with that type of firepower that there wasn't more, as they call it, collateral damage, innocent bystanders. But
I think we can attribute that to the expertise of the Paris police force or the French military, whoever was involved in that incident, on the side of the French people. That group was organized, they were strategic, they were very effective. So we have to give them credit.
Indeed, and of course, there's also been reports that they thwarted another attack with that raid on that apartment, that there was going to be another attack in Paris very shortly. And thank God that never took place. And
Very
interesting times we live in, Anna.
Well, I think at this point they're doing that search in Belgium, aren't they? They have not stopped.
No, they haven't stopped. They're still searching in Belgium. There's quite a connection between the tourists in France and the tourists in Belgium. I would like to know the guy who actually owned that apartment, who lived in the apartment where the raid took place, said that he was asked by a friend to allow these people to stay there. You know what, Anna? I think he should be charged also. I don't think that
at the very least, he needs to be thoroughly interrogated, because it is very often the case that there are folks that are sympathizers that cooperate with these people, and you can't have that. I mean, look, they're acts of war. This is what our administration here in the United States needs to get straight. These are acts of war. There is no question but that these are acts of war. And so, therefore, those that participate with them are not criminals. They are enemy combatants, whether they're wearing a uniform or not. And that's part of the laws of the rules of engagement. That now needs to be changed, because not every enemy of state, not every enemy combatant is going to be wearing a uniform now that we have ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So we've got to change the definitions. We have spoken about the difference between one and another. Now, in some cases, the application of military law to the non-enemy combatant gives less protection than to an enemy combatant. So in that case, perhaps there are some freedoms for those who need to dispense justice where this is concerned. But we have to be very, very careful now with what we do with the refugees, and this is a hot topic.
It sure is.
It's so difficult as a Christian not to feel your heart bleed for other Christians and innocent civilians who need our help. We are unable to identify the innocents and the enemy combatants. We can't distinguish between one and another, and that puts us in a very precarious situation. And I think that there are countries, if I read the news correctly, I believe there are countries that have already said no. I think Sweden is one of them. I don't know if there are others. I have to get up on that. But I don't think we'd be alone in denying these refugees, given this MO of Al-Qaeda and ISIS operators. And I think we need to probably keep a safe haven identified within Syria and within every country where these give them a place to go within their own borders until we can get this straightened out. And that's going to require boots on the ground, Rick. There's no way we do this with bombing and nothing else.
And more than 50.
We're going to have to get serious.
And more than 50 boots on the ground. And I believe you're right. And, I've always been mystified by the fact that these Syrian refugees are not being resettled in the Middle East, that they're being resettled in Europe and in North America. I don't understand that. They're not being resettled in Iraq, Iran, Egypt, anywhere else in the Middle East except for Europe and North America. And by the way, there is a story here that I'm looking at right now on Drudge. Sources claim that 8 Syrians were apprehended Monday, according to sources, along in Laredo, Texas. And apparently they were coming across in 2 separate family units. Okay?
Wow.
They were apprehended at the Juarez-Lincoln Bridge in Laredo, Texas, also known as Port of Entry Number 1. And just, here we go, Anna. We have been told, we have been warned by these Muslim extremists that they're coming. They're coming to America, that blood will flow on our streets, and why in the world can't we take heed to their warnings and stop this from happening? Anna, you talk about Christians having a heart, being sympathetic, but of the nearly 3,000 refugees from the Middle East that have been allowed into this country so far, only 40 are Christian. The rest are Muslim. Why are they coming here? Why aren't they going to other Muslim nations? It's a plan, Anna. It's all a plan to in my opinion, a plan to infiltrate our nation.
Well, I can't paint with a broad brush, Rick, because it's not in my nature, but I will tell you this. It is very possible that what you're saying is true for some, if not all, of the refugees, or quote-unquote refugees.
We can't take a chance, Anna. I'm sorry. We cannot take a chance.
Listen, during Vietnam, we did take in refugees, and that example has been used in the mainstream media. Remember that we did not bring in the Viet Cong. We brought in our allies, and we could identify who was who.
Yes.
This is the difference here. We cannot identify which is an enemy combatant, who are our enemies coming in, and who are the innocents or our allies. And it certainly makes sense directly with our allies. It certainly makes sense out of the definition of what America is and our Judeo-Christian foundation. We bring in the innocents. But if you cannot identify who is who, it seems to me that you are defeating yourself if you bring in unknown entities who could very well produce what was produced in Paris. And I don't know that I'm willing to tolerate that, Rick. There may be people who are, but I'm not one of them.
No. Anna, by the way, Breitbart confirmed that a Syrian did attempt to enter the U.S. illegally through Texas late September. The Syrian was caught using a passport that belonged to someone else, and U.S. authorities decided against prosecuting anyone involved due to, quote, circumstances. Well, let me tell you something, Anna. Circumstances and political correctness is going to get a lot of people killed. And I want to know who's going to take responsibility. Whose hands is going to have this blood on them for this political correctness and for these circumstances?
Well, those are good questions, Rick, and I guess only the future will tell. But I do think we, the people, are in charge, and I say this all the time, and I mean it strongly. We are in charge. It matters not who the figurehead is in the White House. We, the people, are in charge.
Well, we should be in charge, Anna, but I'm starting to wonder if we are really. I really am, Anna. You know, Paul Ryan basically said last night, I think it was on Hannity, oh, no, we're not going to stop them. We're not going to stop them. We're going to let them come in. Paul Ryan.
Well, I think at this point in time, we, the people, have the opportunity to rise up as they have with any other issue. And I believe it is incumbent upon us to do that and remind the man in the White House who is in charge. We are. And there's an election every year in this country. And if we stand up and we threaten every person that has associated themselves with the plan that we object to, and if we use our social media skills, and if we use our off-the-grid radio and our AM dial radio like we are, if we use our opportunity to call, to email, to lobby these folks and demonstrate where you are. I understand that the economy is well challenged. We are much more economically challenged than we were in 2009. Those numbers can be shown where you are in aggregate on these issues. So do that if you can't travel to D.C., if you have to work. It's understandable that people are feeling more pressure as you are and feeling less capable as perhaps you are. But at this point in time, we have the same power we've always had. And the only way we lose on this issue is if we sit down and do nothing. And we, the people, have got to stand up. We have got to make our voices heard. And if that means that we have to vote out every Democrat, then we vote out every Democrat. You do what you have.
I think we got to vote out a lot of Republicans, too, Anna.
Well, okay, then.
You know, Paul Ryan, the new Speaker of the House, is going to let these people come here.
He's one man, Rick.
He's a very powerful man, Anna. Look how long it took us to get rid of John Boehner. And look what we got now, Paul Ryan.
The others, listen, if you threaten all 435, if you threaten all 100, and no one feels comfortable standing next to Barack Obama, then we've done our job.
Yeah.
You do not have to wait for an election cycle for that.
Agree with that, Anna. Hey, we are up against the break, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the Conservative Commandos radio network studio, WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM/FM 24/7, and a bunch of others. Check out our website, ccrshow.com. Today's show is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. And then I'll be right back.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., you can log on to roarradio.net, and at 6 p.m., please log on to thepunditpress.com. Or you can hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. And before we get into our schedule of guests, just got an email here. It was a Rasmussen polling organization conducted a survey of 1,000 likely voters on the subject of Syrians, and it says the results indicated there is a high level of concern among American voters, with 77% reporting they are either very or somewhat concerned when asked the question, How concerned are you that giving thousands of Syrians asylum poses a national security risk to the United States? 52% reported they were, quote, very concerned, 25% somewhat concerned, 14% not very concerned, 7% not concerned at all, 2% not sure. So that's what we're up against. The country don't want them here. Washington has got to get this message. So does every state capital in this nation. Like Governor Tom Wolf of Pennsylvania. Tom, your people don't want them here. The governor of Delaware. Hey, guys, down in Delaware, tell your governor we don't want them here.
Yeah, that's exactly what we have to do, Rick, because if we don't assert our authority over these elected officials, and if we do not hold them accountable, we are not doing our job. And this form of government does not work unless we, the people, stand up and do our job.
Agree with that,
Don't
Anna.
be discouraged, folks. Do your job.
Do your job. I'm well with that. Anna, who are our guests today?
Well, we've got a loaded deck, and certainly on this very appropriate issue. At 3:35, we're going to speak with Walid Phares. He's a professor, and he has served as an advisor to the Anti-Terrorism Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. He's co-secretary general of the Transatlantic Legislative Group on Counterterrorism, a Euro-American caucus, and he's briefed and testimony to the U.S. Congress, the European Parliament, and the United Nations Security Council on matters related to international security and Middle East conflict. He is a Fox News Middle East and terrorism expert, and he has served as NBC terrorism analyst. He's the author of The Coming Revolution, Struggle for Freedom in the Middle East. So we'll be speaking with Walid Phares about Paris and about the threat in general at 3:35.
By the way, Anna, you know, the other night, I mentioned yesterday on the show that I have an eye infection and I'm not sleeping very well. In fact, the sleep that I've been getting has been in my Easy Boy recliner. The other night, I woke up about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the raid on the apartment in Paris, and it was Dr. Walid Phares, who was the expert there on Fox News. So, indeed, we are honored to have him with us today. So, Anna, who will you be speaking with at 4:05?
Well, at 4:05, I get the opportunity to speak with Matt Philbin. He's the managing editor of the Media Research Center. He's a writer whose articles and op-eds have appeared in the Washington Times, the Daily Caller, One News Now, and other sites and publications. And he's a frequent guest on radio programs across the country and appears on television discussing media bias. And he's coming on to Conservative Commandos Radio today to discuss a new study by the Media Research Center, which shows in the 3 months leading up to the tragic events in Paris, ABC, NBC, and CBS did not utter the words Islam or Muslim once in their coverage of the terror attacks on Israelis, while 25 of the 30 stories that aired on evening newscasts described the perpetrators as Palestinian. Not one referred to their radical faith. I think that's very key, Rick, so we're glad we're going to have Matt Philbin of the Media Research Center speak to us about that very issue.
All right, at 4:35, we expect to hear from Dr. Paul Broun. He's a former congressman, and he's a primary care physician who represented the 10th Congressional District in Georgia. And while serving in Congress, he was appointed to the White House Homeland Security Committee, the White House Committee on Natural Resources, and he was the chairman of Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee for the House Science and Technology Committee. So obviously, Dr. Broun is well versed in what is going on in the Middle East, and we do have a great show lined up for our audience today. And we have about 2 or 3 minutes before our next break. Anything else on your radar screen?
Well, I think that right now it is clear that there are more than 50 investigations ongoing in the United States on the subject of Islamic extremist terrorism. And I think that we need to get on top of all of this.
Indeed.
I think people need to be aware that there are signs of these things in your neighborhood. And I don't believe that it's inappropriate, given what's going on today, to be scrupulous about what is going on in your neighborhood and to share that information with local law enforcement authorities. Now, granted, they may not act on every tip, but if we are all engaged in this kind of vigilance and we are all in the mindfulness that what seems like an innocent coincidence could end up being part of a larger plan, if we are able to be vigilant, we may be able to thwart these things in the United States of America before they get to the level of what has happened in Paris. And I think we need to remind ourselves that we have already been attacked by this enemy on our soil. 9/11/2001 was not a criminal act. It was an act of war, and that has become more clear over the last 14 years than it could have been in 2001, although we argued then that it was an act of war. What we, the people, have to remember is that during that time, we did not sit and cry and wait for help. Americans stood up. Americans showed their patriotism and flew their flags at home, in their cars, everywhere they had the opportunity. And they helped each other, and we fought back. Don't forget the gentlemen and the ladies on that airplane in Pennsylvania who said, "Let's roll," and took that plane down before it could reach its intended target. This is the spirit of America. It is inside each and every one of us, and there is no reason for us to cower in terror or fear. There is very good reason for us to be vigilant, report what we see if you have the slightest inkling, and stand up for your country right here at home in your daily lives. And so I hope that that hits home with some of our listeners.
I hope it does, Anna. And with that, we are going to go to our next break. You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, WNCJ 1360, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM, FM 24/7, and a bunch of others. Please don't go away. On the other side, Anna and I will be speaking with Middle East expert Dr. Walid Phares. Be right back.
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night at Concord Bridge in Trenton. For freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stocking. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net. At 6 p.m., thepunditpress.com. Anna, we do have our first guest with us, and the honor of the introduction is yours, so please take it away.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's my honor to introduce Walid Phares. Professor Walid Phares has served as an advisor to the Anti-Terrorism Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives and is Co-Secretary General of the Transatlantic Legislative Group on Counterterrorism, a Euro-American caucus. Dr. Phares briefs and testifies to the U.S. Congress, the European Parliament, and the United Nations Security Council on matters related to international security and Middle East conflict. Dr. Phares is a Fox News Middle East and terrorism expert. He has served as NBC's terrorism analyst. And Dr. Walid Phares is author of The Coming Revolution, Struggle for Freedom in the Middle East. Walid Phares, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Oh, no, thank you for joining us. This is such a terrible moment in world history, and certainly one of extreme concern to everyone in the United States of America, where you're broadcasting right now and around the world on the Internet. I'm looking at an updated report. It's updated as early as 3:30 p.m. today. It's put out by CNN. There are some bullet points here. I'm wondering if you can share with us some insights of what has gone on in this Paris attack. Our hope is that by learning from this, we will be able to thwart such attacks in the future here and perhaps in other countries around the globe. It seems that Abaoud, is the mastermind who has now been confirmed dead. Abaoud used social media to recruit Spanish citizens, mostly women, to join ISIS in Syria, and Spain's Interior Minister Jorge Fernandez told that to Spanish television today. So I'd like you to address social media as a recruitment method. And also it seems that the attack at the Bataclan Theater, which was described in an NBC interview as hell on earth, tons of blood everywhere, no sound, no one was screaming. It seems like it's very extreme, and a lot of that was because they were afraid of the terrorists. Is that a good response, or is that something civilians should come away from? So why don't we start with the social media and then go into what you do if you find yourself in the midst of an attack?
Well, first of all, if you allow me, we need to understand the big picture. And instead of going from room to room, we need to see the whole building. This month, it's 10 years from when I published the book, Future Jihad, Terror Strategies Against the West and Against America, whereby almost everything we've seen over the past few years has been, I don't want to use the term predicted, but projected. There's a whole chapter on it called Mutant Jihad and another one, Urban Jihad. What that means is that those jihadist movements, which were, organized by Al-Qaeda, in the old days, have since the rise of ISIS in June and August of 2014, 15, later on the growth, have been able to penetrate Western society. So let's begin by saying that these are not disorganized individuals who overnight will wake up and then start doing violence. That's how probably the administration would like us to think it is. The reality is that this is a worldwide web of individuals who are coming from different backgrounds, for sure, but who have been indoctrinated by one ideology. So the mothership, if you want to make a comparison with the movies, the mothership is the ideology. It's not even the organization. So that's why we find that the way they do it in Paris is different from Brussels, from London, from they want to attack New York and Washington and the other cases. So now back to the point on the ground. We cannot have a one unified doctrine as to how to tactically respond to the attack by the jihadists. The sky is the limit. That's the big difference with what? With regular armed conflict, where we know you have an aviation, you have artillery, you have infantry, you have everything. But here, the jihadists, because they do not subscribe anymore to any piece of neither national law, international law, humanitarian law. So, even in the midst of World War II or the Cold War, what happened in Paris is something that did not really happen or barely happen. But you go inside a civil society, target nightclubs, concert places, it could be churches, it could be mosques, it could be any of the locations where there are no confrontations, and then perform those killings. Of course, this is below the belt. They could go anywhere, at any corner of any street, in any of our Western cities, and pull the same thing. Now, the point that you have raised, and I conclude my first point with it, is the readiness of our society. This is going to make a big difference. For two individuals armed with their personal weapons to go inside a concert hall with 1,400 people chanting and dancing and start killing up to 100 people, that is not normal, even by the measurement of any guerrilla. I mean, they could kill, and that's very sad anyway, 5, 10, but you could not have among the 1,400 a group of 10, of 20, or trained enough, even without weapons, to subdue 2 after casualties. Why is that? Because governments in the West, including here, are not preparing our public that this is a war. And in a war, you could be attacked at any time. That's different from, dealing with somebody who had mental disorder and goes into a school and shoots. It's absolutely different. Because those who have mental disorder, they don't have a national organization that coordinates all their activities. And that's enough of an evidence that we need to change our culture to meet that new challenge.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I'm so glad Professor, that you're bringing that up. It's very important, I think, for people to not give in to that terror, rather to be ready to take action, perhaps even before bullets start flying. Can you give us some suggestions of how, as a citizen, you should respond when you're in these circumstances in order to eventually defeat these attacks, or at least keep their scope smaller than intended?
Number one, we have to go up to the highest level. This is a country which has a leadership, a executive branch, a legislative branch, both oversees our military security in different ways and manners, and we have a judiciary. It all has to begin from the top. President, the White House, the administration have to address the American people. That's 300 million people, and inform them that we are at war. See, when you remove the act of war, the situation of war, from society and tell them, jihad is yoga and these are people who are, frustrated because of jobs, what happens is you are demobilizing the population. The population will think that, these are individual cases. They will never show up where we are. But if you inform the American public that this is a network that is already at war, what happens is that you multiply the capacity of defense of the nation. Though we have a great FBI, a great, network of agencies, but, they can do as much as they can. They are out going after about 600 cases in 50 states. All right, and these cases have to be hot, meaning they will be pursuing people who are preparing. But the jihadists attacking us are coming with troops of individuals who are extremists who can activate it overnight. So you can't have only law enforcement resolving this. In this kind of war, you have to have the people with you. And what the people can do, it can multiply the eyes of law enforcement, of the nation, of our national security, times thousands. If you educate the individual American citizens through mass public education about what is the ideology, what is the narrative, what is it that they want, how do they, operate, then you have with you literally hundreds of thousands of alerted individuals, adults, who could, number one, detect faster and report. Number two, if there is a situation, and every single situation is very different from each other, so we may have casualties, but not of the kind, the massacre that we had in Paris. Give you a quick example here. When we had 9/11, our people didn't know we were at war. The 9/11 Commission agreed that we were not prepared as a nation, as a government. But since then, it became extremely difficult because people learned from 9/11. Jihadists grabbing a plane and using it as a missile. The government took measures, and the public, including the passengers and the crews, are so much alert. Why? Because they've learned. So what we need to do is to replicate this in all aspects of life, from high school to public libraries to colleges to you guys doing a great job on radio.
Well, thank you very much. And, Doctor, thank you for helping us to educate, because obviously from the White House there seems to be a lack of leadership, a vacuum of leadership on instruction to the general public. And I want to talk a little bit about intelligence. It seems that even in today's news, we are hearing from our leadership here in the United States of America that we will use intelligence and background checks to screen refugees coming into this country in order to determine who is our enemy, who is the innocent that we wish to give refuge to. And I think that all of us find that very difficult to believe, given these people are coming from a war-torn circumstance where record-keeping is certainly not the first priority. And it may be very difficult for us to determine with any background facts who is who coming through our borders. But more importantly, doesn't the focus of intelligence change given the nature of this enemy versus enemies that may be associated with one particular sovereign nation? We're not looking for the plane that's going to bomb us from the air. We're not looking for the nuclear weapon that's going to be launched from a government military base. We are, or from a ship or another vessel that is owned and identified with a certain government. These are people who may be living next door to us today. And so can you give us some advice as to how we can help as general citizens in the intelligence gathering that might thwart future attacks here in the United States and elsewhere?
Fabulous question. I've been working and focusing on the jihadist movement. Probably I'm the oldest expert here for the last 30 years in America, and a few years before that in the Middle East. I know what that species look like in terms of ideological framework. And I can tell you, after I have served as an advisor for many years, U.S. Congress, agencies, NGOs, foundations, ethnic groups, I can tell you something very simple. The United States bureaucracy, especially under this administration, but in general terms, doesn't have the capacity to identify and detect the jihadist threat in a large group of people. That's a heavy statement I'm making, and I'm making it as a message to be sent to our public, to our lawmakers, and to our administration. Especially under this administration. I mean, we had already problems under the previous administration. So it's not just, it's a systemic problem. But under this administration, something else was done from the top, the policy. This administration removed from our bureaucracy, meaning the sum of all our agencies, any narrative, any reference, any explanation to what the jihadist ideology is. Could you imagine that? We have no reference in this bureaucracy officially. Now, individuals could go at home and do their own education. That's a different story. But officially speaking, the administration as of 2009 said there is no ideology. It's just extremist people. There are no historical root causes. It's just about jobs or, some sort of economics and environment. That has consequences. If you remove the material upon which our analysts and experts operate so that they would give that information, first of all, to those members of the armed forces security, and second to the public, we are now below zero in the detection. So you're talking about from 10,000 to 200,000 migrants coming from area. I mean, if these migrants were coming from countries, from Brazil, maybe from Indonesia, or from Estonia, their countries are not controlled by ISIS. This is very simple. High school kids understand that. This is the highest, most radioactive issue of demography happening. It's a transfer of a population from the borders of Turkey and Syria into within the United States. You may have a debate about other demographic transfer, any other place. But about this one, this is where ISIS controlled. So logically, obviously, this group of demographics that the Obama administration wants to transfer to America across the sea, the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic. I mean, I would understand if they would have helped them in Turkey, a few miles away from Syria. I would understand if they would have helped them in Jordan. They're just a few miles from their homes and villages. It would be much more logical to actually carve up a free area inside Syria and then return them to that part of Syria and then continue the liberation. Why is it you're going to transfer them half the globe away without having even the capacity of detecting the ideology, and therefore, let alone the movement and ISIS and the allies of ISIS? So I really support what Congress is doing, but even with the legislation that is just a measure to delay, I am for a full revision of this whole issue. I am for the formation of a 9/11 commission that deals with this transfer of the demographics and that deals with the revision of the war on terror entirely.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are speaking with Dr. Walid Phares, who's the Fox News Middle East and terrorism expert. Dr. Phares, great to speak with you again. I know that you've been a busy man the past few days. I was telling our audience earlier today when I woke up at 3:30 in the morning in my easy chair and had Fox News on that you were there speaking about the raid into the apartment. So I know you've not been getting a lot of sleep lately.
No, not at all.
Dr. Phares, when you talk about these refugees, it's amazing to me that these refugees are coming to Europe and to North America. And as you said, they should be settled somewhere in Syria, but they're not even going to other Middle Eastern countries. What do you make of that? What do you make of the fact that they're not going into other Middle Eastern countries? Are other Middle Eastern countries stopping them? And why is their desire to go to Europe and to North America?
Well, first of all, under international law, a refugee population from a crisis zone will cross the borders into the neighbor country, and this is where the international community helps them. You don't shuttle them from a country to a country to a continent to the moon. So what the administration is doing is even against international law, regardless of it, from Syria or Iraq or the Eskimos. Why are you bringing a piece of Syria half the globe away? It does not make sense, even if they are all vetted. Everybody is vetted, okay? You should keep them the closest possible to their homeland. Why don't you think the Palestinians who left during the conflict of 47, 48, 67, where did they go? They went to Lebanon, they went to Syria, they went to Jordan, they went to Gaza, and they went to the countries surrounding their homeland. Why are they not transferred to Arizona or Chile or Congo? Why? Because it is logical for them that when their solution happens, they are the closest possible, and they would not want to leave. Now, these Syrians, 80% of whom, the refugees, are poor people who had lost everything, and women and children and elderly, right? They crossed the border fearing the Assad regime and fearing ISIS into Turkey, into Jordan, into Lebanon, right? So my question is, why do you want to transplant? This is ethnic cleansing in different manners. Population from that part all the way to the United States. There's a political agenda. Because if you want to put pressure, you talk with the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians further. And we haven't helped the Jordanians, by the way, nor the Lebanese. When they said, help us, we have millions of refugees here, we ignored them. So there is another argument I would raise and before my time is up. When the administration says, the vetting will take 2 years or a year and a half, and the transportation will be another year, are you telling me that you're not going to solve the Syrian conflict for 3 years? This is a huge admission.
Wow.
By just structuring, they're trying to play politics with the opposition, with the Republicans, who are concerned and what have you. They tell them, don't be afraid, we're going to take 2 years, it's going to be fine. But they fell into the trap of telling us that they're not going to be solving the Syrian crisis. There'll be more refugees coming. If you're saying that it's going to take 2 years to that, it means for these 2 years, they're not going to be able to go back home. And it means that more millions are going to be leaving. That's what perturbs me.
Dr. Phares, when you're talking about a 3-year solution, this sounds to me like this administration has no idea what to do, so they're kicking the can down the road to the next administration for a solution.
Yes, but once they create facts, the next administration will be hit with those facts. If the next administration is going to be from the same camp, they're going to continue with the same drive. If the next administration is going to be from the opposition, in this case from the Republican, then they're going to be having on their hands a huge humanitarian problem, and they can't do nothing about it. If you're going to mess up Syria or accept that Syria will be messed up for 2 more years and, set the stage for a transfer of population, in waves and waves and waves, even a Republican administration in 2017 won't be able to do anything for the following 4 years. It's very bad. They should have followed international law, supported the refugee camps in Turkey, Jordan, and Lebanon, brought the help there, created a free zone inside Syria. And by the way, there is a free zone. I'm going to go to the national media in the next few days and indicate to the public that there is already a free zone inside Syria that they could support. Why are we doing our job? Why are we transferring, a whole nation, a whole community overseas to other continents? That's the big question.
Dr. Phares, one more question, if I could, if you have time. In the beginning of the interview with Anna, she talked about ISIS was recruiting from Spain. Why are they recruiting from Spain when they have so many Muslims in the Muslim world to recruit? What is their theory about recruiting from other countries?
Yeah, their ideology is you recruit from everywhere else, because their view is not that the caliphate will be in Syria and Iraq. They want to widen it to Lebanon and Jordan and Saudi and Turkey, and then into the Balkans, and from there into the rest of the world, including Spain. And Spain basically is on their radar, very important, because it was part of the caliphate. So to that specific question, there is a specific answer. Spain was part of the caliphate, and they want to one day, as they claim, they're not shy about it, bring it back under the caliphate. So they are recruiting for that purpose.
Dr. Walid Phares, Fox News Middle East expert on terrorism, and also the author of the book, The War of Ideas. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Please tell our audience how they can keep in contact with you and your writings.
Thank you so much. My website is walidphares.com or .net, WALID Phares, PHARES. So that's the one direct way to send an email and see all my product there. But also have social media. I know your public is has a lot of social media users. There is Walid Phares on Facebook, Walid Phares on Twitter. And then all these ways could lead to my videos, my lectures, my books, and everything else. Thank you so much for having me with you today.
Dr. Walid Phares, the pleasure is ours. Thank you so much. And get a little sleep when you can.
I'll try my best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM/FM 24/7, a whole bunch others. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Matt Philbin, Managing Editor for the Media Research Culture Center. Be right back.
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired as I am about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stocking. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. 1 p.m., roarradio.net, and 6 p.m., thepunditpress.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is with us, and the honor of the introduction is mine. Matt Philbin is the managing editor of the Media Research Center and a writer whose articles and op-eds have appeared in the Washington Times, the Daily Caller, One News Now, and other sites and publications. He's a frequent guest on radio programs across the country and appears on TV discussing media bias. Matt Philbin is here to speak with us today about a new study by the Media Research Center that shows that in the last 3 months leading up to these tragic events in Paris, ABC, NBC, CBS did not utter the words Islam or Muslim once in their coverage, and this is significant. Matt Philbin, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks for having me. How are you guys today?
Well, we're doing great, but you know, Matt, I'm really proud of you for your work because I think it's very significant that there is not the utterance of the truth about who our enemy is and where the ideology comes from that has produced such wide terror attacks as what has just happened in Paris. Talk to us about the significance of not mentioning Islam or Muslim when we're talking about these attacks.
Well, look, this is part of the left's attempt to distort and control language, which is how they succeed, 9 times out of 10, by sort of shading reality, sort of obfuscating the facts in the case. In this case, here you have, if you think about the sort of worldwide tableau of terrorism and who commits terrorism, generally the answer is radical Islamists. Now, the left can't have us believe that because that would put us at odds with an entire religion, which raises practical problems, but it also puts us in a position as a Judeo-Christian nation of being superior to Islam, to Muslims around the world. They cannot have that. They can't admit that. So they love to obfuscate and not call terror by its name. Now, in the case of the United States, look, the average American knows we're being attacked by Islamists, by radical Islam. And the average American understands that he has done nothing to provoke that, and that this is a murderous ideology stemming from a religion that is coming to kill him regardless of whether the United States is in Saudi Arabia or not. Now, the left can't admit the same thing with regards to Israel, because they have a narrative that Israel is an aggressor, that Israel is an occupier, that Israel is facing a nationalist movement, a legitimate nationalist movement under the guise of Palestinian autonomy and the right to return and all those nice words. When the fact is that the Palestinians understand themselves, the Palestinian terror groups understand themselves to be Islamic, just like Al-Qaeda, just like the Islamic State. If you look at the founding documents of Hezbollah and of Hamas's charter, you find that they're infused with religious language, with religious understanding. They commit terror in the name of jihad and in the name of Islam. The networks won't tell you that because they like to keep it on a political level, and they like to keep it in terms of Israel being an aggressor and an occupier, and the Palestinians being, this put-upon minority who's been kicked out of their homeland.
Well, I think, Matt, we've stumbled upon something that is very significant here because, if we don't know who the enemy is, then it is harder for us to anticipate the behavior of that enemy. So eliminating the discussion of the ideology by its name and trying to describe these as random acts of terror, as criminal incidents, I think it's doing a disservice to the future victims of these terrorist acts. We can't anticipate the attack that's coming at us if we don't understand that this is an irrational, radical ideology that is based in a religious belief, that there is nothing you can do to reason with such an attacker, and that you need to identify them by their behavior, their dress, I hate that we're discussing this because this is the United States of America, but if that's how you have to identify the enemy, look, they don't wear a uniform like the Russians would have in a Cold War scenario, so you have to identify your enemy. And, am I onto something here, or do you think I'm completely nuts? I think you've got to identify the enemy somehow.
You're absolutely right. And that is the key to successfully defending yourself, to successfully fighting and defeating your enemy. And when you do that, it leads to victory. And that is something that the left is not interested in. President Obama said as much the other day, but he's not interested in something that seems like America winning. Look, the press takes their cues from Obama. He does not like to identify the enemy as radical Islam. He does incredible backflips and contortions to avoid that. Now, all the press has to do is just not mention it, and that's what you see in this case, in the study we did. You just look at these reports, and what language do they use in the reports? They very comfortably avoid saying that Islam has anything to do with this. They can get away with that. The president, when he's on the spot in a news conference and the sycophantic media suddenly wakes up and decides, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, all of a sudden he gets called on it, and you have these spectacles of him trying to contort words and suggest that somehow this is not Islam, which is a terrible thing, frankly, for the jihadis to have to find out. They must be upset come to find out they're not really Islamic. If I spent my whole life trying to establish a caliphate only to be told I wasn't Islamic, I'd be pretty upset about that. But you're right. In order to win, we have to identify the enemy. And the left doesn't believe we have any right to be victorious. We don't have any right to really defend ourselves. That's why they want to make this a police matter, something to be dealt with after the fact. They're much more comfortable if we can be victims.
Well, at this point in time, I think the American public is on alert. We've all been watching the news. We're all aware of what's gone on in Paris. We've seen the nature of what went on in Paris. We have heard the threat that D.C. is next. Then we've heard the subsequent threat, New York is next. So we know they're coming for us here in the homeland. And I think what's unfair to the citizenry in the United States of America and admittedly in other countries across the globe is to not identify these people with the ideology that they have espoused, which is based in the radical interpretation of a religion. I think if you don't identify your enemy that way, we can't see them coming at us. We can't see them among us. Remember, the folks that attacked in Paris, those folks were living among Parisians, and the government didn't even know it. They thought that mastermind was in Syria. They didn't realize he was in Europe, much less in Paris. They thought maybe he'd gone to Belgium and then to Syria. He was in Paris. We cannot count on our government to look all after us. We've got to do it for ourselves. In America, we already know that. We have it in our spirit. So tell us, Matt, what is it that we can do, or what is it that we should be doing as other media outlets to try to help the citizenry identify the enemy, thwart the enemy? Winning this could be as simple as stopping an attack from happening or narrowing its scope. So tell us, what do you think?
Well, I think we have to be fearless in calling out what we see, in calling the enemy who they are. Whether the government wants to call it that, whether the left wants to call it that, whether you get CARE breathing down your neck, threatening lawsuits, it is the only moral and practical course of action is to call radical Islam what it is, and to call out radical Islamists. To understand that, hey, the 9/11 terrorists, they all went to a mosque right here where I am in Fairfax, Virginia. Okay, they didn't come here right from Saudi Arabia or from Yemen and get on planes and do what they did. They were here. They had a support group. They had support. They had friends. They lived among us. They lived among Muslims in America, and they were nurtured to the point where they could get this done, wittingly or not.
Well, I guess we better just tell the truth, people. I think that's what I'm hearing Matt say, and they are among us. So, Matt, hold on for 2 minutes. We've got to identify the station. We're not done with you yet, okay?
Okay.
Thanks so much. Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with PPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .com. Rick Trader, Anna Little, and Matt Philbin will be right back with you after the break.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today, the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, you can always check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. You can also listen to rebroadcast on your computer by logging on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com at mornings at 9 a.m. or at 1 p.m. log on to roarradio.net. Or at 6 p.m., log on to thepunditpress.com. And if that's not enough, you can always listen to our show on your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Matt Philbin. Matt is the managing editor for the Media Research Center, Culture, and he's a writer, and his work has appeared in the Washington Times, the Daily Caller, and other places. Matt, thanks for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Not a problem.
Matt, this idea of Palestinians, I find that hard to swallow because it was only up till 1967 that area where the Palestinians are coming from was part of Jordan. Why aren't they called Jordanians?
Because,
where's Palestine? I don't understand where Palestine is. I guess that entire area was called Palestine back in the days of Jesus. I don't know, but geez, help me, Matt.
Well, look, it's the distortion of political language. If you believe that Israel does not have the right to exist as a Jewish state, you've got to create the people that they displaced. There were no Palestinians before the state of Israel.
What were they, Matt? What were they if there were no Palestinians before the state of Georgia?
There were Arabs and Jews living in that area. There was no Palestinian people, so to speak. There were Arabs and Jews.
Yeah.
Jews had been there long before Arabs. And, so it's a situation where it was mixed up. They all lived there. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well. But the fact there never was a Palestine. So, again, in order to control the narrative, you create facts, you create language, and you use that language enough, and people assume that it's true. Meanwhile, the Palestinians existed longer in refugee camps scattered throughout the area than they ever have as their own people with their own homeland.
Matt, let's talk history for a minute. I remember 1967. I remember the 1967 war. I can remember looking at a map of the area and seeing this small state of Israel, which is about the size of New Jersey, surrounded by all these Arab countries, and thinking, my God, how can they ever win a war? And they did. And what my question for you, Matt, is where and when and how did Israel lose the support of the media? It almost seems like this war against Israel by these Islamic people is now almost seen as a war, that they're fighting a war of honor against an oppressor. Where could you see that change coming from?
Well, it's more a reflection, I believe, of leftist ideology inside America and inside the West in general, than it is of any change in facts on the ground in the Middle East. The fact is, at some point, Western liberals stopped believing that the West had any right to defend itself, to exist, so to speak. At some point, the left became so overwhelmed with the idea of historical Western crimes and colonialism and imperialism and all the rest of the isms that they just can't forgive Western civilization for, that they decided that any country with Western backing must be all bad. And that is exactly what has happened in the case of Israel. They love the Palestinians, they love the Arabs because they are history's losers.
Mm-hmm.
They were turned back from Andalusia all those years ago. They lost. We won on the grand historical scale, if you want to put it down to winning and losing, and that makes them more virtuous than us. And Israel is a proxy for the West, for America. Therefore, Israel is bad.
Matt, what is your feelings of how the media is reporting on the Paris attacks and the raid on the apartment and the search for the other terrorists?
I think for the most part they've played it fairly straight. I'm pretty, there's only so much they can do right now. Everyone was overwhelmed. And I think you saw the media actually being combative to Obama in that press conference in Turkey. Basically the White House press corps said, wait a minute, you've been telling us this is, ISIS is contained and all that. I think, even after a while they get tired of playing the game. I think we will see, you still see these ridiculous things like, it was all over the internet and the left loved it. The French dad who told his son that, the bad guys had guns, Paris had flowers, and the flowers were going to protect them.
You got to be kidding. You got to be kidding.
No,
oh, my God.
Yeah, it was all over the internet, and it was one of the most nauseating things you ever saw.
Hey, real quick, what did you see Geraldo Rivera, just about jumping out of his skin Friday night when he realized his daughter was over there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And,
I guess that's what it's going to take, Matt. I mean, these people are going to have to be personally affected by this.
That's absolutely right. They're wonderful worldviews. Remember, if you're in the press corps in Washington or New York, chances are they're not going to dump the Syrian refugees in your apartment house.
They should. They should park them right next to Geraldo Rivera, wherever he lives.
Chris, I wouldn't do that to the Syrian refugees.
Hey, Matt, we got to run, but please tell our audience how they could follow all the great work that comes out of the Media Research Center, cnsnews.com, and your other affiliates.
If you go to newsbusters.org, you find pretty much that's a clearinghouse for all the stuff that the MRC does.
Matt Philbin, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care. God bless.
Great talking with you. Thank you.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Hannah Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network here at WNJC 1360. Please check out the website, ccrsnetwork.com. Talks about all the great shows, conservative shows, here as part of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Paul Broun, our good friend, former congressman from Georgia. Be right back.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, WNJC 1360, and around the world on the internet. Our guest this segment is our very good friend, Dr. Paul Broun. Dr. Broun is a primary care physician who represented the 10th Congressional District in Georgia. And while serving in Congress, he was appointed to the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Natural Resources, and the chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Committee for the House Science and Technology Committee. Dr. Broun, welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Rick, it's always a pleasure and an honor and a blessing to me to be with you guys.
Well, Dr. Broun, it's great to have you with us. And Dr. Broun, I'd like to start out this interview by saying that we have reports that 5 or 6 Syrians were traveling to the United States with stolen Greek passports. We have other reports of 8 Syrians stopped at the U.S. border trying to get into our country with fake Syrian passports. We have the United States government who has brought thousands of refugees from Syria into the port of New Orleans. Dr. Broun, you are a doctor. And I was listening to one of our shows today. Rick Robinson, who does a show here as part of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, America Off the Rails, and Rick was talking about if there was one cow with mad cow disease, they would quarantine or get rid of the entire herd. If there was one sick chicken, they would quarantine or get rid of all the sick chickens around it. But yet, Dr. Broun, we are told by ISIS that they're coming through our borders, and that our streets are going to run with blood. Yet, this administration is doing nothing to stop them.
Well, Rick, they're not only doing nothing to stop it, but they're promoting it. Barack Obama said that this basically show vote that the new speaker, Paul Broun, is going to have is because I don't think Mitch McConnell will even bring it up. I'd be pleasantly surprised if he brings it up in the Senate. I think the Democrats will vote it down through a procedural vote. But I don't think the Republicans in Washington are going to do much to stop it either. It's really sad. Under the U.S. Constitution, the major function of the federal government should be national security and national defense. We've had 4 presidents, 2 Republicans, George Herbert Walker Bush, George W. Bush, and 2 Democrats, Bill Clinton, and now Barack Obama, who have steadily destroyed our defense capability, who have steadily destroyed our ability to keep this country safe. All 4 of them have believed in open borders. All 4 of them believe in amnesty. And it is a sad, sad state of events that we've got a president now who's not only not trying to stop these Syrian refugees, but is doing everything he can to promote them coming here. We need to say, American people need to say, no, we're not going to put up with this. And the way they do that is by calling their congressman, their senator, and stop the Syrian refugees, period.
Dr. Brown, earlier today we were talking about a Rasmussen poll that 77% of the people who were asked the question, are you concerned? Are you concerned about do Syrians pose a risk? 77% of them said they were either somewhat concerned or very concerned. 52% said that they were very concerned. 25% said they were somewhat concerned, versus 14% that said not very concerned, or 7% not concerned at all. So obviously, Americans are worried about this, but we're not getting through to this administration. I don't even think we're getting through to the Republicans in charge in Congress.
I agree with you totally. In fact, let me remind you something that former U.S. Senator Everett Dirksen said years ago. He said, when he feels the heat, he sees the light. And what he's saying is that most politicians, most members of Congress, one principle that they're going to stand firm on and not err from is their own reelection bid. And so if enough people contact them through phone calls, through personal appearances, through emails, through regular mail, any other way, if enough people contact them, they will start seeing the light. There are many members of Congress that need to feel a lot of heat, and so that they will see the light. But unfortunately, there are a huge number of members of the U.S. House as well as the U.S. Senate that need to see the door. In fact, I've just taken on the national spokesman position with the Tea Party Leadership Fund, and what it is all about is to try to help true, solid conservatives who believe in constitutionally limited government, as our founding fathers meant it to be, to have the financial resources to take out Democrats, but not only to take out Democrats, but to take out these so-called rhino Republicans, Republicans in name only. There are many Republicans in Washington that claim to be conservative, but they're not. And we need to replace them with people who understand the Constitution, understand not only that these Syrian refugees should not come to America, but will fight hard for truly limited government as our founding fathers meant for government to be. It's the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com is the website. And I encourage people to go on that website, sign the petitions, contribute. The Tea Party Leadership Fund.com. We have to get rid of these rhino Republicans, and you're exactly right. I don't think our leadership in the House nor in the Senate is doing anything but a bunch of showboats. That's what Paul Ryan's doing this week with this Stop Syria issue. Barack Obama said, I think it was yesterday, that he would veto the bill if it ever got to his desk. We need to build enough heat behind the members of Congress in the House and the Senate so that we can get a veto-proof majority, so that the Senate force Mitch McConnell to vote on the bill, force members of the House and the Senate to vote to stop these refugees, because every single American in this country should be extremely concerned about these people coming here. ISIS has already threatened us. We need to take them at their word, because everything that they've said thus far, they've done. And we need to take them at their word. Barack Obama says they're nothing but a JV team. And he's not fighting them in Syria. We're doing very few bombings. We saw the French take out a major headquarters, And after we've been bombing there for a year, we're bombing old empty warehouses and empty buildings and places that doesn't make a difference, just so that Barack Obama can look like he's doing something. The American people need to demand something different.
Dr. Brown, when you talk about what the Syrians have done as far as bombings, what gets me is we knew where that ISIS training base was, but yet we did nothing. We told the French where that Syrian training base was. If we knew it was there, why didn't we take it out a long time ago?
Well, because Barack Obama doesn't want to, I don't think. In fact, I base that claim on just look at what they're doing. They're sending very few sorties. Those are the actual missions, planes going over there and doing bombing. We're bombing empty warehouses. We're bombing things that are not important targets. We're not going to the heart of ISIS and taking out their leadership. We're not taking out the people who are orchestrating and doing the training, etc. We've got the French president said we're at war. Barack Obama is out playing golf while we're at war. He's not concerned. He's not doing anything except for trying to have these to have this show of bravado by having a few little plane raids into Syria and dropping bombs on nothing. And our leadership in the House and the Senate, Paul Broun and Mitch McConnell, are doing nothing to really stop it. It's all a bunch of showboats. That's what John Boehner did about Obamacare. They're doing nothing about stopping this flood of illegal aliens and the amnesty program of Barack Obama. They're not doing anything about the immigrants that are these refugees, so-called refugees, that Barack Obama wants to come to this country. We've got 30-some-odd governors say we don't want them in our states, but the reality is the governors can't stop them when Barack Obama's administration is giving them plane tickets and bus tickets to come to Georgia or Virginia or California or Texas or New York or anywhere. There's no way to stop them unless we put up post the state's borders, and we can't do that. So we've got to stop them before they get here. The American people need to be angry about this like I'm angry about this. They've got to call their congressman, they've got to call their senator and say, no, we're not going to put up with these refugees coming to this country. We want you to vote to stop it. We want you to force the leadership to stop it. We want you to override the president's vetoes, and we want you to do it right now.
Dr. Brown, do people in Congress listen to their constituents? For instance, you mentioned earlier that if you threaten the re-election, they'll get busy at something. But don't they just want to do what the right thing is for the American people first?
No. What they want to do is what's the right thing to make sure that they keep their job as a member of Congress in the House and the Senate. That's the reason Everett Dirksen said when he feels the heat, he sees the light. Mm-hmm. That's the reason our listeners need to call. First thing, they need to call everybody that they possibly can and send emails to everybody that they can and encourage them to call their U.S. congressmen, their U.S. senators, say we have to stop this Syrian refugee program of Barack Obama, and we've got to do it now. Force your leadership. Push Mitch McConnell. Push Paul Ryan. Push your other colleagues in the House and the Senate. We've got to flood the telephones in Washington and every single congressman, Democrat and Republican alike, liberal and conservative alike, say this is a national security emergency. You've got to stop this president's relocation of these refugees. Actually, we need to stop the relocation period of what's going on. This president has just opened up our borders. He's inviting terrorists to come here, and it's got to stop. And the only way that you and I and our listeners can stop it is put a tremendous amount of pressure on the members of the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate, and say, if you don't stop this, we're going to find somebody, we're going to kick you out of the office, we're going to find somebody to run against you, and we're going to help them win so that you're gone. That's the kind of heat they need to feel.
Dr. Brown, I want to give out a telephone number for our audience. And, you know, I'm encouraging our audience to call the U.S. Capitol right now, today. And that's if you oppose the Syrian refugees calling here. And the number is 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. The operator will ask you what state. You tell them what state you're from. They'll transfer you to your senator and to your state representative. And Dr. Brown, when they get heat, do they feel it?
If they get enough heat, yes, absolutely, they will. We've got to close down the switchboards. So people need to not only try to call, but they need to continue to try to call if they get a busy signal. And then they can go on house.gov, house.gov, or senate.gov. They can find out who their congressman is. They can find out who their senator is. They can get the direct phone number to their Washington office. They can get the numbers to their state and district offices. They need to call all of those numbers and say, stop the Syrian refugee program of Barack Obama's. And they've got to get everybody involved within their sphere of influence doing the same thing. We've got to flood their offices with emails. We've got to flood their offices both in Washington as well as in each state with demands and say, this is a national security interest. If you don't stop this Syrian refugee program, we're going to throw you out of office, because this is a critical issue for the security of our nation and the safety of our people. So people need to get involved in this. Every single American. The statistics that you said, where you have 3/4 of Americans either somewhat concerned or greatly concerned, it ought to be 100% of Americans greatly concerned about this and activated to stop the Syrian program.
Dr. Brown, I wanted to ask you
right people. Then
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Didn't.
What?
That's what the Tea Party fund. The Tea Party. Anyway. I'm so wrapped up on this thing.
Yeah, and Dr. Brown, we're losing you a little bit. Please give out that website again. We lost you when you were trying to call. Give us that website.
I'm so fired up about
TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com.
That's right.
TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com. Dr. Brown, I wanted to ask you about...
Please contribute so that we can fund candidates who want to take power away from the special interests, from the big multinational corporations, and start sending power back to the states of the people and leave money in people's pockets so we can have a strong economy and have jobs in America. That's what the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com is all about. Please go on that website and please contribute.
Dr. Brown, I wanted to ask you about Barack Obama sending 50 troops to Syria. 50 troops to Syria. Number one, is this wise? And do you see that this is an escalation of more boots on the ground? And I'm also concerned when you're putting U.S. troops into Syria and you have the Soviet Union there, and you have the Soviet Union bombing ISIS and other rebel troops that are fighting against the Assad regime, which Russia's trying to back up. I see a real potential for a confrontation between the U.S. and Russia there in Syria.
I think you're correct. First answer is it is an escalation. Secondly, it's not wise. 50 troops are not enough to do what needs to be done. I believe in the special forces, and they do clandestine types of operations, and you'll have a special forces individual go in and work with the locals to try to help get the locals engaged in the fight. We should have been doing that with the Kurds, particularly in Iraq and Iran and Turkey and in Syria. I don't think we've been doing that enough. We've not been helping the Kurds to fight. 50 troops is not enough if we're going to be engaged in this. It is an escalation. It's just a pittance of an escalation. I would hate to be a family member of one of those 50 troops that are being sent over there, because I think not only are they being sent in harm's way, but they don't have the backup, they don't have the support that they need to really do a military job. And I believe you're right. There is a potential of having an escalation of a hot conflict between us and Russia as well. So it just shows the ignorance and the incompetence of this administration. And it's not just the guy at the top. It's all the people across the board. It's people like Secretary of State John Kerry. If I had been in the Senate, I would not have voted for him. It's like the Secretary of Defense. I would not have voted for him either. We've just got incompetence across the board within this administration, and it's just a reflection. What's going on today? What happened in France is actually a reflection of a poor foreign policy of the U.S. government. It's got to change, and unfortunately, we can't change it until next November of next year, 2016. But right now, Congress is the only place that we can put any pressure to try to stop Obama and his administration. That's the reason it's so critical for our listeners to call their congressmen, call their senators, email them, go see them, and get everybody within your sphere of influence to do so, and go on the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com, contribute so that we can help get the right kind of people elected next year to be in the Senate, so that whoever the president is, because we've had Republican presidents just like Democrat presidents, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, that are just not as bad as this one, but have been terrible on these immigration issues and on the border issues, as well as big government issues. So we've got to, Congress is going to be the stop of Barack Obama, but will it be the stop of whoever is elected as president next year as well? So we've got to get the right kind of people elected to the U.S. House and U.S. Senate. That's what the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com is all about. I encourage people to go there, contribute whatever you can. But please help us fight this battle for freedom and liberty.
Dr. Paul Broun, I want to thank you for being our guest today. It's great to speak with you again. Take care. God bless. One more time, it's the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com, the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com. Dr. Paul Broun, thank you so much. You are a patriot, my friend.
Put that on your website too and encourage people to go.
We will. I also want to give out that telephone number again, 202-224-3121. The operator will ask you what state, and they'll transfer you to your senator or to your congressman, your member House of Representatives. Congressman Paul Broun, thank you very much.
God bless you, and I hope all of our listeners have a very blessed and happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much.
And happy Hanukkah, too, for that matter. So that's great.
Can't forget our Jewish friends. And I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. I also want to thank our other guest, Dr. Walid Phares. I want to thank Matt Philbin from the Media Research Center, our most recent guest, Dr. Paul Broun. Anna, 30 seconds. Final thoughts?
Please,
well, we just got to get the
charge.
Okay. For right now, we're out of time. We got to go run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
You're listening to Rebooting Liberty Radio Network. Compelling and entertaining talk. Don't touch that dial.
Hey, liberals, why don't you try rooting for your own damn country for a change?